So how much longer did you go? An hour, she said?
Yeah. That's right. I thought you.
I can't believe you can remember all that.
That was the last one. Well, that, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know.
You guys got to give about 30 seconds here.
Because otherwise we'd get another 2 hours. And then we would have.
Oh, we didn't have public comment. That's true, we didn't.
You guys ready? Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Good morning and welcome to the May 8th MetroPlan Orlando board meeting. I am Cheryl Grebe and hope you all are doing well this morning. I'd like to call the MetroPlan board meeting to order. At this time, I'm asking you to please silence any and all electronic devices that you may have. In addition, I'm asking everyone speak directly into the microphone. This is important for recording purposes. And for the guests in the audience who have any hearing impairments, please let Lisa know, and then she can make sure that we accommodate you. We have 2 opportunities at this meeting for public comment. Public comment on action items appearing on today's agenda are heard before we get to the action items. Public comments of a general nature are heard near the end of the meeting. Anyone attending today's meeting in person who wishes to make a public comment is asked to complete a speaker's card. They are available at the reception desk on the table near the door. Cards should be given to Lisa Smith. Members of the public who are attending online and wish to make a comment should fill out an electronic speaker's card. We want to make sure that this and all future meetings to be accessible to all. Participants may join by computer, tablet, or phone. If you need special accommodations to participate in the future, please contact MetroPlan Orlando so we can assist you. Now, if you'd all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm asking Sean Gramelis with the Kissimmee Gateway Airport to please lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sean. So we had the Bike Walk Central Florida and the Best Foot Forward event. MetroPlan and Bike Walk Central Florida coordinated a safety summit and Vision Zero speaker series on April 4th. The keynote speaker was Dr. Rebecca Sanders, the founder and principal investigator at Safe Streets Research and Consulting. She certainly has an impressive career studying transportation and safety. Her research has influenced national policy and design standards. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
Just that we were happy to participate with the Bike Walk Central Florida series. Commissioner Wilson was there as well. It was a very interactive session. And I believe that was the first or second of our speaker series. And we have some more coming up that I'll say more about in a bit.
Okay. Commissioner Wilson, do you want to state anything?
I would just encourage everybody to participate if possible. It was really, I thought, educational, informative, as well as being able to network amongst other agencies.
Yeah, I had to leave a little early. I'm glad you were able to attend. Okay, we also have the Central Florida Commuter Rail Commission. They've had 2 meetings since our last MetroPlan board meeting, March 28th and April 25th. Commissioner Janer, now the immediate past chair, has a report for us this morning. Commissioner Janer.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The CFCRC met on March 28th. The commission adopted the November 16th, 2023 meeting minutes. The commission heard reports on the system from the Sunrail Advisory Committee, the Sunrail Technical Committee, FDOT, Lynx, and Votran. We ratified new Customer Advisory Committee appointees. We had a detailed presentation on the Sunrail Operations Phasing Agreement. Phase 1 is the financial transition by December 31st, 2024, and Phase 2 is the operations transition within 3 years of the financial transition. Other notable items from the meeting included information that FDOT will provide funds for positive train control. FDOT will pay for operations costs of Phase 2 North for 1 year after revenue service. FDOT will provide a lump sum payment for state of good repair for vehicle overhauls. And FDOT will place the bridges along the CFCRC in their bridge management program. It was the final meeting for me as chair as we elected new commission officers. Volusia County Chair Jeff Brower is the new chair. Seminole County Commissioner Amy Lockhart is the vice chair, and Mayor Dyer is the secretary treasurer. The CFCRC will meet again on April 25th. The April 25th meeting, sorry, the commission met again on April 25th. I messed that up. The commission adopted the March 28th, 23 meeting minutes. Board members received an update on the DeLand Station construction for Phase 2 North and the Sunrail Title 6 update. We received ridership updates for both Lynx and Voltron feeder routes. We received an update on the Sunshine Corridor T-car study, which includes cost and ridership estimates, and an update on the operations phasing agreement for the Sunrail transition. The Sunshine Corridor PD&E is estimated to be about $5 to $6 million. Board member comments. There was some discussion on the need to consider a fair study for Lynx and Sunrail. Thank you, Madam Chair. That is my report.
Any questions for Commissioner Janer? A lot going on there with the turnover happening. Thank you, Commissioner Janer. The Central Florida MPO Alliance. They met on April 4th. Commissioner Castano and Commissioner Constantine attended. Commissioner Castano has a report, I believe, this morning for us. Commissioner Castano?
Good morning, everyone. The Central Florida MPO Alliance met on April the 12th. We only had one action item, approval of February 9th, 2024 Central Florida MPO Alliance meeting minutes. We received 4 presentations, which included Central Florida MPO Alliance coordination efforts, moving Florida forward, I-4 and I-75 and I-95 presentations. Discussions of the passenger rails statement, updated on federal GHG performance measures and targets. The next Alliance meeting is June 14, 2024 at the FDOT District 1 office in Barton. This meeting will also include a joint meeting of a Central Florida MPO Alliance and the Stone Coast Transportation Planning Agency. This concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Castano. Any questions for Commissioner Castano? Okay, seeing here, and thank you. MetroPlan Safety Moment. This time we'll hear from Mike Wilson for this month's Safety Moment. And we'll also receive a report on distracted driving and seatbelt use.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Yes, we're going to give you a 2 for this month, April being a distracted driving month and May for seatbelt focus. When it comes to distracted driving, we're reporting over 20,000 crashes per year involving some form of distraction. When it gets into the details, we can't really sort out well, what types of distraction. Very often officers can't definitively, report, for example, if a smartphone was involved. But obviously that is a major component. When we look at serious injury crashes, over 600 a year, and that's 40% of our serious injury crashes. And you see similarly over 40% of our fatal crashes involving distraction. When I look at safety problems, I like to look at things in hard numerical terms as when it comes to the consequences. So I want to talk about the consequences of an extra half a second of perception and reaction time.
I skip right over Commissioner.
So imagine that 2 cars are going 40 miles per hour down the road, and one driver requires 2 seconds to perceive and react to something up ahead. That driver's going to cover 112 feet during those 2 seconds. And an extra half second is going to add nearly 30 feet down the road. Well, the consequences down at the end, at the stopping point, are really pretty profound. That first driver is going to stop. It's going to stop at that crosswalk, for example. Well, the second driver will still be doing more than 20 miles per hour at that same point. So pretty significant consequences for just a half second difference in our attention. When it comes to seatbelt use, over 80 fatal crashes on average per year involving an unrestrained driver or passenger in our area. That's more than half of our fatal crashes. 10 years ago, it was only about 34%. So we are unfortunately backsliding. I looked at that from a per capita standpoint, it's more than doubled as far as our unrestrained drivers. I need to look into more detail to see who's represented in that.
Curious, Mike, because I was going to ask that same question for the distracted driving. Have we looked at that, and taking into account population and such, and how that has risen?
No, I have not looked at
Be
those.
curious on that. I would assume it would be up, especially with cell phone use and such, but.
Mhm.
I have a quick question for you. First of all, thank you, very informative. But when it comes to distracted driving, how does that interact with our transportation model, and do we account for it? And how do we account for it?
Yeah, I'm not a modeling guy, so it's not something I could answer, but certainly, we see it all the time where people are stopped at a signal and light turns green, they're still looking down at their phone. We all see that. How we can quantify that is.
The reason why I'm asking, Mike, is I've been asking this question for the past number of years, and I've not really gotten any response. And I'm just hoping that maybe someday someone will have a
Mhm.
response. Thank you.
Go ahead.
That's great data, and I was curious if we have any plans to make any kind of social media graphics or posts that we could share, because we could certainly drive
Mhm.
that message out pretty well and help with on that front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually that will be in my Vision Zero update later this morning, so.
Oh, great. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mike?
Thank you for your report. I just had a question. Why don't we teach a little bit more about the 2 to 3 second rule, make it more prevalent on people, kind of a repetitive until it becomes the norm. Those 2 to 3 seconds distance and teach people. A lot of people out there, I know that they have to take some of this when they go to school for driving and whatnot, but they forget pretty fast and conscientize about this until later on. So maybe that's something we need to continue to repeat to people, the 2 to 3 second rule. So I have a niece, and I hate to say this, not too long ago, she got into an accident. She said, "It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault." You hit somebody from behind. It was your fault.
Mhm.
So it's because they think that, and now with all this technology that there's on these vehicles that allegedly they stop before you get there, they trust those things, and it's not always the case. So maybe we need to start a campaign trying to promote that 2 to 3 second rule.
Certainly couldn't hurt. But I think really a key thing going back to people need to understand the consequences of their actions
Exactly.
in cold, hard terms. And so whatever we can do in that respect.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mike. I'm going to go back to Commissioner Uribe. You had the MPOAC on April 25th, I believe. I
Yes.
apologize.
Good morning and thank you. The MPOAC Governing Board met on April 25th. We approved the following action items: the January 25th meeting minutes, the FY 24-25 through FY 25-26 UPWP, extension of the general counsel contract, the consultant contract for planning services, the appointment of 2 new policy committee members, and elected a vice chair and an at-large member of the executive committee. We received the executive director's report that included the MPOAC budget report, of a review of the 2024 legislative session, noted that the July 25th meeting should be in Palm Beach Gardens along with Floridians for Better Transportation, a report on the North Carolina Statewide Metropolitan Planning Organization, an update on Safe Mobility for Life. We heard agency reports from FDOT, Federal Highway. We had a presentation from David Darm on the transportation disadvantage. We had a wonderful presentation from Space Florida, and we started a review of the strategic director's plan. This work will be continued through a virtual workshop and in-person meeting of the policy committee in June here at our office, here at the MetroPlan Orlando office. This will be followed by a full governing board review of our July meeting in Palm Beach Gardens. I just wanted to note
many people, including Gary Huntman, attended the North Carolina Statewide Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is a wonderful opportunity to have elected officials understand what is involved in transportation and all the components and why the MPOs are so valuable. And with my board and with our entire governing board, we are looking at how do we do that here? Because our biggest, I call it Achilles that we had, is that a lot of our legislators don't understand how important this component is in the MPOAC, and what of all of our regions are responsible for doing. I semi call it home rule, but it allows that opportunity to bring electeds to meet us, to know us, and I'm talking MPOs statewide. And so I hope we get some leverage out of that, because this was highly attended, over 400 people in North Carolina that were present, including Gary. So it's been an honor to serve, and very, very exciting. I encourage you to come out. We got our first report on space and 157 launches scheduled to go up. So really exciting. I don't think we'll do a field trip on one, but hopefully out to the coast. So thank you all.
And the meeting with North Carolina, because of the similarities and such, and I assume we're looking at maybe some of the ways they're accommodating.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're looking at it all. Gary went, our executive director for the MPOAC also went. And what we really decided is most electeds, when we were trying to protect some of the funding and the legislation that was going on in Tallahassee, weren't aware fully of what the MPOs did.
Yeah.
And so it's more of a knowledge base where we allow them to know. And I want to take advantage of thanking a lot of folks on this board who helped advocate to protect our MPOs, but it doesn't mean it's not going to come back up in the next session.
I just didn't know if North Carolina was doing a better job.
No,
in
of
that
course
way.
not.
No, okay.
No.
So it's just a
We're better, always.
nationwide kind of thing. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was wondering.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you so much. And now for any questions? Mr. Utman.
Okay, good morning, Chairwoman Grieve and board members. I want to update you, first of all, on our apportionment plan. I've been talking about that for a number of months, a number of meetings. But we went ahead and sent out the interlocal agreements for execution prior to receiving any approval on the apportionment plan, which turns out was a very wise thing to do. We have 12 of the 15 interlocal agreements in hand. There was another one that was approved this week on Monday. Another one will be approved tomorrow, I understand, at the CFX meeting, and then the final one will be approved next Monday. So we'll have all 15 of those interlocal agreements. We have received verbal approval from the governor's office through DOT. There's still, the governor's office has some issues with one of the MPOs in the state in the apportionment plan. I don't know which one that is, but they don't want to send out a letter until they're satisfied with all of them. So now I'm working through what I hope is just a minor issue with the Federal Highway Administration, and then we should be good to go. So we feel good about that. Board alternates, this morning we have Mr. Martinez here, representing the Central Florida Expressway Authority in place of Commissioner Arrington.
Yeah.
And we're also joined by a guest, Councilmember Gilbert from the city of St. Cloud, who is their alternate to the MPO board, is here, and he simply wants to learn about what we do and absorb as much as he can. So thank you both for attending. Also at the last few meetings, I've talked about greenhouse gas and emissions and how we were going to have to start monitoring that. But as you know, the state of Florida was one of 22 states that challenged that. And since our last meeting, the courts in a Texas court and a Kentucky court ruled in favor of the states that stated that the US DOT doesn't have the authority currently to mandate that. So that's no longer a requirement for us. We were prepared for that, and if it should come back, we're still prepared to do that. I want to report that we were visited by the Hillsborough TPO staff. 6 members of their staff came to visit us on April 24th. They are part of the effort to consolidate some of the MPOs in the state. During the 23 session, the Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco MPOs needed to do a study on the reasonableness of coordination. And so a number of them have reached out to us. Pinellas has reached out, Hillsborough has reached out. But 6 members of their staff came and observed our CAC meeting on April 24th. And then they spent a couple of hours with us, just asking us questions that are on their mind about should they become a regional MPO, what does that mean and how would their jobs change? The difficult thing and interesting thing is we don't know any different, so I hope and I believe that we were helpful. But some of the questions that they were asking of us are of things that just come naturally to us to do. So, but happy to help them out. I want to remind the board members of the May 17th DOT Safety Summit. It's going to be from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. at Ports of Call at SeaWorld. So hope you can attend. I know that Commissioner Moore is going to be there and is serving on a panel. So thank you for that. Then I also want to draw your attention to something that's in your supplemental folders this morning. It's a flyer announcing upcoming speaker series events that we're having as part of our Vision Zero. We have lined up Charles Brown on May 23rd, Melissa Wandal on June 4th, and Dan Burden on June 13th. Those are virtual events. They all begin at 10 a.m. So if you have an opportunity to listen in to those speakers, that would be helpful. We have launched our 2024 Regional Transportation Survey, and we'd like all of you to take it and share it. Some of you will remember that we do this public opinion market research every few years. The data we gather informs all of our planning efforts, especially the upcoming 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. The survey will be open through Memorial Day weekend, and you'll hear a presentation on the results at one of your meetings later this year. You can see on the slide that we have a short link to the survey as well as a QR code. There's also some information on this in your supplemental folders and a copy of this same information at the table as you enter the room here that was produced in both Spanish and Creole. So if you feel the need to take any of those, please do so as you leave this morning. The current Operation Best Foot Forward crosswalk enforcement is happening now. Last week was the first week of it. And it was a successful week of enforcement. It ended last Friday for the first week, and law enforcement handed out over 200 citations and warnings. Then I want to announce an award that we are a part of. The Regional Transportation Systems Management and Operations Program. We've talked about that at several of your meetings, and it's something that we're working on all across the I-4 corridor. We've been at it for several years. At any rate, they'll be honored at the 30th Annual Future of Regions Awards. That's a luncheon on Friday, May 10th, at the Clearwater Beach Hilton and Resort. The luncheon will be held in conjunction with the Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Summit, but we're being acknowledged for our work and our effort on that. So congratulations to Eric Hill and all of the MPO staff members across the I-4 corridor who have been working on this for the last several years. Then also want to note Alex Trauger. Alex has been appointed to the Transportation Research Board's Standing Committee on Urban Freight Transportation. TRB is one of 7 program units of the National Academies of Science, Engineering and Medicine that provides independent, objective analysis and advice to decision makers across the country, and conducts other activities to solve complex problems and inform public policy decisions. So Alex will be on that. His term runs through mid-April of 2027. So congratulations, Alex. Then I recently learned that Commissioner Uribe has been appointed to the DOT Transportation Steering Committee, a statewide steering committee.
Congratulations.
This is a new committee of the DOT that is chaired by Assistant Secretary Kim Holland. Commissioner Uribe will be serving as the co-chair of that group. Her first meeting is tomorrow in St. Petersburg, and then she is also scheduled to meet with Secretary Perdue on Friday. So congratulations, Commissioner. All of Central Florida should benefit by having a member of MetroPlan Orlando involved in this work. Perhaps we can schedule updates for the board as your work progresses. And I understand it's an 18-month commitment. I don't know if you are able to say anything.
I just want to say, I mean, I love transportation and I'm honored that Secretary Perdue and Assistant Secretary Holland chose me to be on this board, which will be very important because our region is very important in the state of Florida. And I did not know I was going to be co-chair till recently that I was told I was going to be co-chair. But it's wonderful. We'll be meeting around the entire state of Florida over the 18 months. And I look forward to when we host them here. But it's been fantastic. It's been great to work with DOT, all the staff in Tallahassee and the secretary and assistant secretary. And of course, I'm a big fan of Secretary Tyler. But this is fantastic. And we did not add, when I meet with Secretary Perdue on Friday, we're actually meeting about the MPOAC. So that'll be very directed to what we're doing and what the future of what we will look like. So I'm excited. It's an honor. I'm a little giddy and I can't wait to go tomorrow. So thank you.
That completes my announcements.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Now we hear from Secretary Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members. It's great to be back. Another beautiful day in Central Florida. So I haven't been here in a while. I apologize for that. This time, Wednesday, a certain Wednesday of each month also competes with our standing executive committee meetings. And actually next week, I'll be going to Chipley for that meeting. So I'm glad to be here today, be here at home, and I've got several things to update the board on. So we've got a lot of great things going on. So I'm going to cover some updates on I-4, Sunrail, and then I'll close with safety. So first I want to start with on I-4. I want to kind of go from, north to south or east to west, whichever way you think I-4 runs. It's an east-west corridor that runs north-south. But you know what I'm talking about. But up in Seminole County and into Volusia, that's what I call the north stretch of I-4. We have a plan for that stretch of I-4, but it is going on a decade since we developed it. It's old. It needs to be refreshed. Growth, traffic have continued in that area. If you drive that stretch, you know it firsthand. So we're going back to the drawing board. We need to refresh our traffic projections and take another look at our designs for that stretch of I-4. So we're in the process of doing that. We will be coming back later this calendar year with some of our findings and our thoughts and our conclusions about where do we think we should go next. And we'll take that back to the community and basically rebuild a plan for that north stretch of I-4 and certainly both MetroPlan as well as the River to Sea TPO, because we will be crossing over the border into Volusia County, will be critical part of that. So look forward to that as we move through the rest of this calendar year. Then getting into I-4 Express. Yes, we're still at our introductory toll price. We're continuing to monitor the traffic. Things are performing just like we expect. We're actually going into a time of the year where we're actually going to see a little bit of traffic decrease. It may be counterintuitive, but when school is out, we actually see a modest decrease in traffic on I-4. Mom and dad are, they have to make different decisions, during the summer and they don't always, make the same amount of trips. You also have people taking vacations. So at least through the summer, we don't anticipate, a continued growth in the express lanes, but we're going to continue to monitor that very closely. And we're prepared to transition to dynamic tolling when the time is right so that we can preserve the capacity that we created with I-4 Express. But we've also got I-4 Express extension currently under construction as you move, further to the west, down into the southern part of Orange County. We've got almost $425 million of active construction going on between Sand Lake Road all the way down to State Road 536, rebuilding the Sand Lake Road interchange, widening the State Road 528 ramps, turning Darrell Carter into a fully functioning interchange and rebuilding State Road 535, as well as going to be extending that express lane all the way down to State Road 536. Was my team able to provide a video? Could we play that? So this is the interchange at I-4 and Sand Lake Road. So in the heart of and we can turn the volume down. I'm going to kind of narrate a little bit if you don't mind. We converted this interchange to a diverging diamond over a weekend in March. The original plans called for shutting down this interchange for 56 hours. while we converted this interchange to a diverging diamond. We didn't think that that was going to be very supportive in this portion of Greater Orlando. So we came up with a plan to do it over the course of the weekend without actually closing the interchange. And so what you're seeing here is a time lapse photography of how we were able to do that. And what I like is watching the merry-go-round go around and the things go, I'm watching the stuff in the background, but the traffic's cool too. But this took an incredible amount of coordination and teamwork and collaboration with the partners that we have on International Drive. They have been very involved with this project, helping. They want to be a part of it, helping us understand what their concerns are going to be. Because pretty much there's no good weekend, there's no slow weekend. Actually, all weekends are good, but there's no slow weekend, in this community. So we have to, go above and beyond to be able to build transportation infrastructure in this community. So I just wanted to show that. I think it's kind of cool how, we were able to, to rebuild an interchange while keeping the traffic going. And we've opened it now for about 2 months. We're continuing to make tweaks and modifications to it, but it's performing, very well. This is one of the first big steps for this interchange. There will be others as we move along, but it's going to dramatically change the way people move around in this area. So we're excited about that.
Mayor Demings, did you have a comment on this item?
Absolutely. Mr. Secretary, I use that intersection every day. So, the question I have is, when is it going to be completed?
We still have another 2 years, Mayor,
Okay.
unfortunately. So it's going to be a long process, but we're making some progress. Okay. Any other questions about the video?
Any other questions?
It's not about the video, it's just a request. So all 3 of those interchanges there are in District 1. Mayor is one of my residents, one of my constituents. If you could anytime that you feel like there's something that my residents need to know, we have a tremendous kind of blasting effect through our newsletter and through our social. If you'll send it my way so we can update them. There was definitely a lot of constituent activity when this went live.
Yes.
I think, anything new, even if it's something that's going to be beneficial in the long run, is always a little bit the shock value for folks. So just stay in touch, and I appreciate all the attention to these 3 interchanges.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you for that. We will definitely take you up on that offer. We appreciate it. So sun's coming up. I think we can, take the video down. But that was, an overnight activity here in Greater Orlando that got some good accomplishments. So, with that, with the interchanges, the 3 interchanges that I mentioned, we're also extending a westbound express lane. We do expect the majority of all this work to be completed and open to the public in late 2026, Mayor. So that's, so we're looking at another 2 years, before those barrels are ready to, move on down the road. Okay. And so that's where I'm going next, is into Osceola County. And into Polk County. Many of you are familiar with the Moving Florida Forward program. And a significant amount of the Moving Florida Forward program is right here in Central Florida. Over $3 billion of investment in Osceola and Polk County to improve I-4 as well as complete the Poinciana connector. So, and many of you have heard about this, but, we're continuing to work on it. That stretch, we have decided to kind of pursue that project as 5 independent, separate construction projects. By bringing these projects forward, we're expecting to be able to provide congestion relief, through this area up to 15 years earlier, thanks to the governor's vision and leadership of bringing these resources forward. We're going to widen nearly 15 miles of I-4, including adding 2 express lanes in each direction, as well as complete the Poinciana connector, which will be a new link between County Road 532 and the I-4 State Road 429 interchange that will align with CFX's projects as well. So the program that we're pursuing, it's going to take 10 years, to complete all of this work. This $3 billion, over $3 billion of infrastructure is going to take over 10 years. But we do anticipate getting started before the end of this calendar year. So that is our goal, is to get some of those construction projects along I-4 going before the end of this calendar year. And the Poinciana connector, we look to start that in fiscal year 28. So unfortunately, more construction to come, but it is certainly desperately needed for our communities. So I'm going to transition over to Sunrail, and thank you, Commissioner Janer, for that great update. I mean, you stole a lot of my thunder, but I'm gonna let it, I'm gonna talk about it again. So it was a huge accomplishment to get the phase transition agreement executed. I mean, we agreed to it. It's been executed. The 5 local governments that make up Sunrail, as well as the state of Florida, have decided that this is the way that we're going. And we put that into place, and we're moving ahead. And if you were listening to some of Commissioner Janer's, the points of what that transition agreement included, I think it's a definite demonstration of FDOT's commitment to Sunrail after transition, well into the future. It's not that DOT is going away. We're shifting to different roles, but DOT is still going to be a partner with Sunrail, for years to come. And with that transition, it allows FDOT to also now start focusing on what's next for Sunrail and the expansion opportunities. And the CFCRC, continues to be interested in the Sunshine Corridor. A great presentation was given. The ridership potential for the Sunshine Corridor is tremendous. It's an expensive project for sure, but transformational transportation projects, that's a mouthful, they're expensive. They're expensive, but they can really change the game. When you think about Wakava Parkway, I-4 Express, Terminal C at OIA, as well as Sunrail in general, these projects can transform our community. So we're looking to move ahead with that. And so we're going to be going to FTA, hopefully in June, to be able to take our plans to them, get some good feedback from FTA so that we can continue to figure out how do we move the Sunshine Corridor forward. Other things that we're working on with Sunrail, we have introduced our new mobile ticketing app. It was a soft launch, very quiet, kind of just focused on the people that are riding Sunrail, every day. So we launched it, basically by talking to people at the platforms. But so far, our mobile ticketing app has 5,500 downloads, and 16% of all ticket sales today are being done on that mobile app. So you don't have to buy a ticket anymore from the machine. You don't have to tap on and tap off. If you've got the mobile app, you buy your ticket on the phone, you activate your ticket, you're good to go. And so it's a dramatic improvement from the technology that we created 10 years ago when we opened Sunrail. So we're excited to see how the mobile ticketing is going. And that is part of the replacement of the ticket vending system. And so we are in the final stages of testing that new ticket vending system. You see the machines on the platforms. The ones that are out of service are actually the new machines that are going through testing. And as early as, towards the end of this month or June, we anticipate being able to convert over to those new ticket machines and take our ticket system to the next level. But that's not all. We're also working on the phase 2 extension to DeLand. Construction is starting to wind down, and we'll be transitioning into, testing and integration and evaluation and making sure that FRA and FTA are good with what we have. We do believe that we'll be able to open the station to DeLand this summer of 2024. So we're excited about all the work that's going on with Sunrail. And finally, I'll close with safety. Director Huttman already mentioned our safety summit that's going to be next Friday. This is something that I'm very passionate about. We've got a lot of great partners all over Central Florida that are passionate about safety and have different ideas, different resources, and different successes. And I wanted to find a way to bring all of us together to talk about, how we can advance safety, both at the governmental level, but also with law enforcement, our education partners, as well as our nonprofits throughout Central Florida that are interested in improving safety. So that's what we're going to be doing next Friday down at SeaWorld, is a gathering of all of Central Florida to talk about safety. It's 9 months worth of work to go out to these communities and ask you for your ideas about a strategic plan for Central Florida for safety. And we'll be unveiling that draft plan and asking for your feedback and comments and support. And some of the themes that are going to go into this plan are increasing collaboration across all of our agencies, thinking beyond infrastructure. As Commissioner Ortiz, you made an excellent point. How do we teach people? How do we teach people to drive? That's DOT can't do that alone. I'm not sure who can do that alone, but together, working together, I think we can find some ways that we can start making an impact about how people behave on our transportation system. And then the third theme is going to be a continued focus on safety within the organizations that are participating in this. How can we keep sharing, best practices amongst ourselves? So I'm really looking forward to next Friday and that safety summit, and I hope to see many of you all there. With that, Madam Chair, that concludes my update.
Thank you, Secretary Tyler. Any questions for Secretary Tyler? Yes, Commissioner Uribe.
Secretary, I'm excited about the Sunrail ticketing. And that's really great with the app and tapping on. Is there going to still be some sort of ticket verification? Because I know it takes a while to transition people, and I always felt, I learned the hard way that I didn't even know that I didn't buy a ticket till, after the fact. But I was riding, but I did buy my ticket after, but there was no, I always feel like when you walk with a purpose, no one bothers you, And so no one said anything to me, but just curious, as you guys are transitioning to that, and I'm sure there'll still be a component where people won't, how will we assure that those riderships are coming through?
That's a great question. We will continue to verify that people have tickets. And so that happens today. That's done by the conductors on the train. They don't check everybody for every ride, because they have other jobs to do, on that train, keeping people safe, making sure that they understand where they're going, where they need to get off. But a component of their job is to verify that riders have tickets, and they will continue to do that, and they will have the technology to be able to do that as well.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Secretary
All right,
Tyler.
thank you.
Okay, Miss Lisa, if we could have a roll call.
Martinez for Arrington. Bates. Blackwell. Bonilla. Castano.
Here.
Constantine. Gomez Cordero.
Here.
Delari.
Here.
Dowlis.
Here.
Demmings. Dyer.
Here.
Good.
Yeah.
Grieve.
Here.
Janer.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Scott. Smith.
Here.
Ortiz.
Present.
Uribe.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Woodruff. He might have dropped off. He was on. But Madam Chair, that concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum physically present.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay, next we move on to our committee reports. Mayor Dallas for the Municipal Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Municipal Advisory Committee met last week on May 2nd. MAC approved our March meeting minutes. We then recommended approval on the following items: Organizational Public Participation Plan, the 2050 MTP Public Participation Plan, and the fiscal year 25-26 UPWP for fiscal years 24-25 through 25-26. MAC received 4 presentations. They were a status update on Vision Zero activities, an update on the 2050 MTP, the active transportation plan, and information about the TISMO master plan. MAC meets next June 6th. That concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Mr. Dan Stevens for the Community Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. The Community Advisory Committee meeting on April 24th was preceded by an orientation session for our new and existing members. In addition to information about the CAC and the advisory committee structure, Ms. Taylor Laurent provided a short primer on the Metropolitan Transportation Plan to help new members understand this important process. We officially welcomed 6 new members, 4 MetroPlan Orlando appointees and 2 local government appointees, although not all the new members were able to be present at the meeting. I would deviate from my comments since we have representation from St. Cloud. Apparently, there was a post in the St. Cloud social media to fill these few slots, we had over 40 applicants. So considerable interest in joining our ranks. I think maybe 192 and Narcousie Road traffic has something to do with that, but that's my own personal take on it. Yeah, exactly. As Mr. Hutman pointed out, we were also joined by the staff of the Tampa TPO. Of course, they picked the one contentious meeting that we had. I hope they didn't leave with a sour opinion of us, but we survived. The regular meeting, the CAC recommended approval of the 2 public participation plans you have on your agenda today, along with the updated UPWP. Members heard updates on Vision Zero, the 2050 MTP, the Active Transportation Plan, and the TISMO Master Plan. Members expressed a desire to hear more about how the region is planning for the future, especially around new technology and infrastructure to accommodate EVs and driverless vehicles. MetroPlan Orlando staff is exploring ways to offer more on this information. The next CAC meeting will be May 29th, 2024. If you choose to attend, bring some popcorn. It's always entertaining. That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. Next, we have Mr. Joshua DeVries with the Technical Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and Joshua DeVries, Chair of the Technical Advisory Committee. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I'm Joshua DeVries, Chair of the Technical Advisory Committee. TAC met 2 weeks ago on April 26th. Like the other advisory committees, TAC met in person with a physical quorum present. Our action items, all of which were unanimously approved or recommended for approval, included our February 23rd meeting minutes, organizational public participation plan, the 2050 MTP public participation plan, and the UPWP for fiscal years 2025 and 2026. Like the other advisory committees, we received presentations on Vision Zero status update, 2050 MTP status update, active transportation plan, and the TSM&O master plan. There were no TAC-only presentations, and there was no public comment nor submitted. Our next meeting is May 31st at 10 a.m. and this concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Mr. Brian Sanders with Transportation Systems Management Operation Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and board members. The TSM&O Advisory Committee met on April 26, 2024. The following items were approved, including the minutes for the February 23rd TISMO meeting. There were 3 other actions requested by the MPO staff, including the approval of the organizational public participation plan, the 2050 MTP public participation plan, and the 2025 to 2026 UPWP program. We also had 2 presentations. The first one was presented by Mr. Eric Hill on the TISMO master plan, followed by the FDOT Regional Integrated Corridor Management System, presented by Mr. David Williams of VHB. The next TISMO meeting will be held on May 31st, 2024 at 8:30, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Okay, next up, public comment on action items. Do we have any public comments on action items?
I've not received any.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda, items A through C. Anyone wishing to pull or have comments? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
Uribe? By Uribe, second by Commissioner Moore. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, next up, we have approval of the final draft of the Unified Planning Work Program. Mr. Alex.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. We are here today requesting your approval of our Unified Planning Work Program, which again is federal code for MetroPlan Orlando's annual operating budget. You've heard a presentation, longer versions of this presentations at your past meetings. I believe this is my 3rd, but today we are asking for your approval consistent with the timeline as we have to submit our UPWP back to the Florida Department of Transportation by May 15th. With that, you may ask, what's different between the draft UPWP that we presented last month and what's in front of you today? And to answer that substantively, very little. The most significant change was an action that you took at your last board meeting, which was de-obligating current year fiscal 24 funds, unencumbering those, enrolling those into our next fiscal year, fiscal 25. So those funds, about $1 million of PL and SU funds, are rolling with your action from the last board meeting, and those funds are now included in our budget consistent with the DOT guidelines. Based on some of those other changes, we made minor modifications to some of how we were funding some of the projects, especially consultant services. Each of the funding types has strings attached to them. So where we needed a little more flexibility, agility in the funding, we use local funds versus the federal funds, which have a lot more rigor. We also added to the document DOT's planning activity, the District 5's planning activities. That's something we did not have in advance for incorporation into the draft, now incorporated into the final. And we also have a copy of Federal Highway as well as FDOT's comments in our response to those comments. We were able to address really all of DOT's critical and enhancement type projects. And that's what we have in front of you today. Again, our current year budget higher than typical. That is SS4A funds, that federal discretionary grant that we have. The majority of those funds are actually going to be spent in current year by the end of June, but some of those funds will roll to next year to finalize the regional plan as well as incorporate some of the final touches to the local plans that we have going on. But as we look at fiscal 25 and fiscal 26, we're getting back to some of our more typical funding levels. And that's what we have there. A subset of our budget is a pass-through, which goes directly to links. So a portion of our PL or federal planning funds goes directly to links to support their strategic planning activities, as well as transportation disadvantaged funds to support the Access Links for administering the Access Links program, and not incorporated in the UPWP directly, but important to call attention to at our board meeting is your board, the MPO board policy to transfer SU or federal urban attributable funds to links to support their eligible capital expenses. So it's really supporting their transit asset management program. So again, those funds are not in the UPWP, but worth calling attention to as we're talking about budget and transfers from ours to links. So with that, we are requesting your approval today in your agenda tab, you do have the board resolution. But again, we are asking for your approval unless you have any questions. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Travis? Yes.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve this agenda item.
I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any further discussion before we move on? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Next, we have the approval of the MetroPlan Orlando Public Participation Plan. Mary Ann Horn.
Chairwoman Grebe, board members, good morning. It's good to be with you here today. I am here to talk about two plans. Our 2024 Organizational Public Participation Plan, as well as our 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Public Participation Plan. There's two action items, one for each plan, but I'll talk about them together because they've moved through the process together. And they have aligned goals, but slightly different missions. The 45-day plus comment period has been met. It will be exceeded by the time we close the public comments on Friday of this week. Both plans have moved through this together. And we promoted both of them on social media and our website and other ways. And we were pleased that we got comments, which you have in your packets, comments on both plans. And we were glad that the public did respond to us. These are some of the graphics that we used in our promotions. Now, our approach when we update these plans is that we review what we did previously, and we look at what we can do better and what is the latest government guidance on best practices. In this case, the last time that we updated our organizational public participation plan, which sets the tone for all of our public participation activities was in 2019. And then something happened. Our 2045 MTP public participation plan kicked off outreach activities in 2020 and 2021. And so we learned a lot in that experience because we had to take so many of our activities virtual because of the pandemic. And so we're going to keep those things that we learned and we're going to enhance them in these plans. We're going to balance our virtual engagement, which was very successful in the previous plans, but we're excited that we can add back in the in-person piece as we have always done. We've got strategies for reaching out to people in the community who are not often at the table with the public participation plan, and we want to expand our reach through partnerships with community-based organizations. Because in this time when you have so much informational noise coming to people, the very best way to get your message in there is to go hand in hand with a trusted organization, someone that they know, and then you can get much better public participation. So just quickly, the organizational plan, again, which is sort of the umbrella plan for all our activities, has two basic goals. We want to encourage two-way communication with the community, because if we're just putting information out there and not getting any feedback in return, that's not really communicating. That's just broadcasting. If we also want to consistently reach out to and get input from members of the public who aren't always engaged, and that could be for a number of reasons. It could be because they're experiencing barriers to transportation, their age, both old and young, their language, their ability, or any number of other things. So we have special ideas in place to reach out to those people. Our 2050 MTP public participation plan works on a more compressed time schedule because you've been hearing a lot about the 2050 MTP. You'll hear more today. And that plan is rolling in with approval expected at the end of next year. So we've got a very defined time frame here. This outreach is going to be very robust. We have particular goals for making it inclusive and accessible. We will have a strong digital presence here because we did learn during the pandemic that you can reach a lot of people with a virtual presentations that you can't reach in person. So we'll do that, and we'll get public input back at each and every event that we attend, and we'll be sharing with our decision makers, and that would be you, of course. And then we want to really encourage engagement with a diverse group of stakeholders and using those community partnerships. And here's where we really need your help. At your places today, you should see in your folders one of these sunny yellow forms. Doesn't look like anything else in there. It should pop right out. Yes, Chairwoman Grebe is holding it up. That's the one. That's the one. We know that you're very busy. We know that you have many important things to do. People are always asking you things. This could be the easiest thing that anybody asks you to do today. Because all I really would like you to do before you leave this room, if at all possible, is put your name on this form and then tell us the names of a few community groups or events. These could be specific or general. People that you think probably don't hear much from us that could benefit from hearing from us. If you know someone there, that's great. Just circle yes. We'll get back to you or your office and try to track down that contact. If you don't know someone particular in that group, but you still think we should reach out, that's fine. We'll find them. But please give us your ideas, and you can just leave it on the desk there. If you should walk out with it, you can also fill it out, take a picture of it, send it to me, send it to Lisa. We'll still get your ideas incorporated, and we would really appreciate that. So with that, I am happy to take any questions, and then again, this will be 2 action items, and the chair will lead you through that.
Any questions for Ms. Mary Ann? Seeing, hearing none. So first I'll look for the approval of the MetroPlan Orlando Public Participation Plan, which is in tab 3.
Move for approval, Joyner.
Second more.
I have a motion by Jane or a second by Moore. I have a question by Mr. Good. Nope, no comment. Okay, cool. Any other? All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you. Next would be the approval of the Metro and Transportation Public Plan Participation Plan. That's a lot of plan.
It's a plan for a plan.
It's a
yeah.
plan for a plan.
You got that right.
Any motions there?
Second reading.
Motion by Dyer, second by Uribe. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very
Okay.
much. And if I could take one more brief second here at the mic, Madam Chair. Commissioner Ortiz brought up an excellent point about the dynamics of stopping and starting and distances that people use. And I just wanted to let you all know that we did develop last year a product that we took around to some of the STEM fairs for middle school and high school students that uses those math and science principles to talk about stopping distance and reaction times and so forth. Happy to share that with you. I can tell you that it was effective with people who were just getting their driver's licenses or about to get them. It kind of scared them straight, at least for a minute. And we got good reaction. We got good reaction from parents too. So I'm happy to share that. And if you would like to see that.
Thank you so much. Okay. Next in tab 5, you have information items for acknowledgement. I receive a motion for acknowledgement of those items.
So moved.
Motion Janer, second Moore. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, next we have Mike Wilson back for our Vision Zero Safety Action Plan update.
Good morning. Thank you again, Madam Chair.
Morning.
Our update this month, we'll start off once again with public engagement. Our teams have been very busy in all of your communities. They've participated in or put on over 40 community events throughout the area with over 1,000 interactions with the public, as well as over 150 local government meetings. And you can see the whole laundry list here. I won't go through all of those, but also note further down, over 10,000 views and over 22,000 users on our Vision Zero website. So we're definitely getting the word out and getting good feedback from people. As I mentioned earlier, social media templates addressing many of those key issues that we've been talking about in our safety moments. These have all been developed by our regional team, and we will be available for you all to share through all of your own social media channels. As Gary mentioned, the speaker series. Again, we have Charles Brown to talk about equity and safety this month. And then a couple in June, Melissa Wandell talking about the perspective of those who are impacted personally when they lose a family member. And then Dan Burton, who's been at this a very long time, talking about walking and cycling in June. Then we'll also, not in the handout that you have, but we'll have another session on speed management, getting input from other parts of the country and other parts of the state with their experience of, and hopefully some successes that we can learn from on how to manage speed. We had our last task force meeting, last from the standpoint of the plan. We are still in discussions as to how that task force continues on in an ongoing basis. But it's been a good time talking about the policy framework that will grow from this planning process and then delve into all of the other planning processes, the routine processes that we have, so that safety becomes an integral component of everything that we do. Spent a good bit of time in that task force talking about the prioritization process, not only for within the safety plan itself, but then how does that process reach out into our other prioritization of projects more generally. It was a challenge to whittle down the many factors that we wanted to look at, but figure out which ones were really going to be feasible to measure and to make a streamlined and practical prioritization process. Our team's been doing some supplemental analysis. One has looked at transit stops and where we are seeing the greatest numbers of boarding and alightings and how that might relate to crashes. We find that half of Lynx's boarding and alightings are happening on our high injury network. So we were looking at the pedestrian and bicyclist crashes that are in proximity to our busiest transit stops. And from there, we will be able to identify locations where we can do improved crossing infrastructure, whether those are hybrid beacons or whatever form that will take. The team also been looking at emergency response, finding out when the crashes happen and when do law enforcement and or EMS get there. Not surprisingly, finding that the closer you are to a police or fire station, the better response you get. A little bit longer response time at night, but not egregiously so. And it's also good to see that people in disadvantaged areas are getting roughly the same type of response time. There are some variations, and we've been talking with some local governments as to areas where there could be some improvements. But the key thing is that when we look at the countermeasures that we want to implement, most of them are unlikely to have any increase in response time as far as impacting EMS, but hopefully they would be reducing the need for those calls, so that should help the whole system. The team is putting together an action plan outline so that all of the county and city plans can follow along with that and be consistent, and also helps all those teams get a leg up on developing their own outlines. And then our next steps, internally, we are looking at the next grant cycle, which for us, the target application will be end of August to consider another either supplemental planning and or demonstration project based on what we've found in this first phase, trying to figure out what we will do for the second phase. Also continuing discussions with the three counties as to the demonstration projects that are part of this current grant, and we're closing in on finalizing those. And then once again, the project schedule, you see we are closing in on wrapping this up. So next meeting, you will get a probably 95% completed draft of the plan. And then for the July meeting, we'll be looking at adoption. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you so much. So at the community meetings, engagements we had, there were some residents that approached me later, said they had signed up for what they believed was a steering committee, but they hadn't heard anything back. So I don't know if there was a sign up for something, or if somebody there was collecting names and email addresses just for the fun of it. But they were expecting some kind of engagement and hadn't gotten any. And I was wondering if there was any engagement for the participants in those community meetings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the steering committee, for Orange County was already developed at before the teams even went out. So it wouldn't have been for that. Yeah, I'll have to get back with the consultant team and see if they have an answer.
I was going to say it was an easier place definitely to scoop up people, not just for this, but for that.
Right.
Because we had a public audience. So I hope that sign-in did capture somehow for future engagement, and that those people are continuing to be engaged with. Is that happening?
I couldn't say specifically with what was being collected. Yeah.
Okay. That is a great idea, though, as they come in and making sure that we have their email address, so they would get additional updates on where things are with the process. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Gallar.
Thank you. Mike, you alluded to the fact that accidents or issues next to fire stations get like a quicker response. I think that's what you said. But not all dispatch operates the same. There are some dispatch that does the closest vehicle, not the closest firehouse. Have you looked at that at all to see what the correlation would be?
No, but we're having, this has generated discussions internally for some of the jurisdictions to take a deeper look as to the mechanisms, and then the processes for response. But yeah, we haven't gotten down to that level of detail.
Because a lot of times it's where the apparatus is, not where the firehouse is, because some dispatchers don't do run cards anymore. They just do the closest vehicle per GPS.
Okay.
If you need more information about that, I'm sure we can get it for you.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Okay, next we have Mr. Slade Downs with Active Transportation Plan, which is tab 7 in your booklet. Nice tie.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Board. Like you said, my name is Slade Downs. I'm a transportation planner, and I'm the Deputy Project Manager for the Active Transportation Plan. And this morning I'll be taking you through the final overview of the Active Transportation Plan Ride and Stride 2050. So we started the ATP back in 2022. We've been working for the past 18 months to develop this final plan. This is an overview of our schedule of activities during that time. If you'd like to take a look at the full plan, you can read that on our website, metroplanorlando.gov/ATP. So along with a extensive kind of task schedule, we had a pretty extensive engagement activities schedule. We had 2 workshops with the Technical Advisory Committee and the Community Advisory Committee, as well as several steering committee meetings and a pretty robust public engagement process that I'll touch on in a couple slides. So there are 4 parts to the main plan. The existing conditions, which is really kind of looking at the infrastructure that exists out in the region at the moment, as well as any active transportation or bike ped plans and policies that you all have on your books at the moment. And we were able to take those existing conditions and build out a identification of needs and an assessment of those needs around the region, and come up with a list of projects that was then prioritized based on steering committee input. And finally, we have the technical appendices, which is really just us showing our work. It's, if you want to do kind of the deep dive in the data, that's where that lives. But first up, I'll take you into the existing conditions portion. As we were working with your staffs and looking at the plans you'll have on the record right now, we realized that there were kind of a lot of different names for the same types of infrastructure. So our first task, we wanted to make sure that, say, a protected bike lane in Kissimmee meant the same thing as a protected bike lane in Altamont Springs. We wanted to make sure that we were all speaking the same kind of common vernacular and speaking the same language. So getting all on the same page really helped us to develop the ATP network itself. We took into consideration many things like traffic counts, posted speed limits, actual speeds, and that sort of thing. The main goal of the ATP network was to improve the walking and biking infrastructure around the region. And we were aiming to come up with recommendations for things like new trails, intersection and corridor improvements, safety improvements that could tie in with our Vision Zero efforts, etc. So once we came up with that draft network, we worked with the Technical Advisory Committee as well as the CAC. We sent this comment map out to them, and they provided lots of comments, lots of feedback. We were able to meet with your staffs to address those comments and incorporate their feedback into the next iteration of that network. And once we had incorporated that, we were able to push it out to the public, really see the people that are using the network, what they thought of our ideas. And we had a pretty robust response. We had 444 comments. It's kind of hard to see what lines we've drawn just based on how many comments were left. So we were glad to get that kind of feedback. We were able to make some changes and tweaks and come up with a final ATP network. So the final network consists of 253 projects, two types, the first of which is new projects, completely new that had not been on the books before. This is a summary of all those projects, and I won't read that wall of text, but just want to include it for reference. And our second type of projects that we were able to devise is project enhancements. So this is kind of expanding or enhancing projects that are currently planned. For example, maybe a trail that we wanted to widen the limits on to extend it into a community center, or potentially, a road widening project that had the opportunity to include a shared use path, that sort of thing. Along with our project recommendations, we have several policy recommendations in the plan, such as expanding ADA compliance, kind of a tutorial on how to set up a regional active transportation count program, micromobility regulations for individual municipalities, as well as guidance on bicycle facility recommendations and selections. So that is the overview on where we are on the active transportation plan. Next steps, we're going to incorporate it into the 2050 MTP. We're going to take the needs analysis and our solutions and strategies and roll them in to the MTP as kind of the bicycle and pedestrian component of that plan, which you will continue to hear about for quite some time as we continue to develop it. More on that can be found on our website, as well as these board meetings. You can go to metroplanorlando.gov/draft2050 plan. And again, I'm Slade Downs. I'm happy to take questions now, or you can reach out to Taylor Laurent, our manager of transportation planning. She is the project manager for this project, or Catherine Tellez, who's the consultant project manager from Farron Peters. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Downs? Commissioner Wilson?
So would it be possible to get a zoom in on some of the public feedback results for our own use? There was, I think there were some things that are kind of clumped up there, and there's one of those is a exclamation mark that it says new facility, and I don't know what that is. I know that could be a variety of things based on this information. So if I could get a zoom in, that would be awesome.
For sure. Yeah, we could take a look at those and maybe kind of zoom in on District 1.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, we have Mr. Eric Hill with our TISMO master plan. Mr. Hill.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the board. This is the last presentation on this project. I gave you an update at our last meeting, and TISMO is looking at how we can use information communication technology to improve reliability, mobility, and safety of our transportation system. Now, this plan includes initially a look at where there are gaps in our system, how we can address those. And then we wanted to leverage, build on what we already have invested so that those blossom as well. And then we looked at intersections. So we started this in spring of 2022. We would have been done at the end of last year. However, we extended it so that we could address those investments that we've already made, as well as intersection improvements. The steering committee includes 9 agencies, and we had 7 meetings. The project manager is Jim Woods with Ken McCorn, who's with me this morning. And we have concluded with summary documents and 9 technical reports. Everything that we produced in this master plan will roll into our 2050 MTP. The vision, again, how can we leverage technology to improve mobility, safety, and reliability? We established goals that resembled what was in our 2045 plan. Those will continue into the 2050 MTP. There'll be some slight variations, but everything will still be considered a goal. So we started out defining the needs, and that included looking at documents, doing research, background, work on what has already been completed. We did interviews with each of the stakeholders to understand what their needs are, came up with strategies, agency organizational improvements, as well as looking at corridors and intersections. Strategies that we developed looked at what FDOT has recommended in their documents. And then we developed a list of projects. We developed a prioritization matrix for the gap projects, for the projects that we wanted to leverage, as well as for the intersections. And then we identified those regional strategies or future considerations. Path forward is what we call it in the document. So again, we wanted to address the gaps. We wanted to leverage what's already out in our system. And then we looked at intersections. So the next few slides here, we'll look at the top priorities for each of the jurisdictions. This one shows the gaps as well as what we call advanced ITS projects, those that already have investments made where we can build on. This is for Seminole County. This is Osceola County. Orange County. Orange County took a different approach. They wanted to bundle projects. So for example, if you look at the gap project bundle B, you'll see those dots along I-4 corridor. That's where they wanted to bundle those projects as a way to get those funded. And here's the city of Orlando. The intersections, I showed you this graphic or this slide at your last meeting. And if I can just refer to the question that Commissioner Delary asked earlier about distractions. As part of our retiming program this year, we added a component where we looked at distractions at intersections, because that was one of the questions you asked us to look at in terms of improving the operations of our intersections. We have done that. Laura Balk, who's the project manager, will include that in the presentation. But what we found is that there is no significance in terms of distractions at intersections and how that delays intersections. I'll add to that that late model vehicles now have that economy feature where car shuts down when you're at an intersection. And I don't know how that plays in, but I would suspect that that does have some impact on delays at intersections. So the path forward, we'll look at regional strategies. And part of the regional strategies, if I can again refer to one of your questions, Commissioner Delary, is how do we collaborate across jurisdictions so that when there is incidents, we can respond to those. I go back to 9/11 when that happened, and there were about 20 jurisdictions that needed to respond. And because the communication networks were not tied together, they didn't operate as efficiently as they could. So we want to try and address that across the region. That's just one of the illustrations. Future considerations is, seeing if there's synergy between this master plan and the active transportation plan, of course, including safety under Vision Zero for Central Florida. And then artificial intelligence. I refer to this as a wild card. We already have some artificial intelligence within our system, but how that will continue to change and evolve is kind of uncertain. One of the concerns is just constraining that form of technology and looking at how we can address bias in the technology. So again, that's a wild card. However, it is something that we will address, we want to consider, because it can have an improvement on our system. So I mentioned here are the list of documents. They are on our website for your review. If you choose to, I would suggest you just start with the TISMA Master Plan Summary document. It provides you a complete, comprehensive overview of what we completed in these appendices. The documentation review is just a review of all the research that we did. We looked at existing conditions. The regional ITS architecture is a document with graphics, diagrams, not much reading there. And then the needs assessment, just that. What did the agency tell us what they needed? We developed the matrix for prioritizing these projects. We used an evaluation methodology for the intersections. The project strategies were those that were found within the department's documents. Then funding guidance, and I've said this before, spoiler alert, because there's not really anything that there are federal opportunities that of course we'll pursue, but in terms of what we can expect, nothing much has changed there. So if you would like to review these documents, I encourage you to, and if you could provide us comments by Friday, May the 10th. Again, they're online, they're on our website, and there's my email address. And if you have any comments or questions that you want to provide after this meeting or after you review the documents, please do. And Madam Chairwoman, that concludes my presentation, and I'll address any comments or questions.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Hill? Okay. Responses by the 10th. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next up, backup, Alex Trotter for the MetroPlan, Metropolitan Transportation Plan update.
Good morning again, board members. I'm pinch hitting for Taylor Laurent. She's at a technical conference this week, learning a lot about metropolitan planning and some of the other topics that we've covered today. So I'll be filling in for her today and talking to you about the 2050 plan. And as it's been mentioned, you'll be hearing from us in one way or another, really over the next 18 months until we ask for your approval at your December 2025 board meeting. So we kicked off a few months ago. You approved our MTP and our organizational public participation plans. We just a couple weeks ago wrapped up our existing conditions analysis and area profile. So understanding where we're at now, our baseline conditions, so we can start. Got to know where you're at now before you can start looking into the future. So we have that time capsule and understanding of where we're at as a region, both on the infrastructure side, but also socioeconomically. And another element that we're working towards relating to the area profile is a travel patterns or an origin and destination analysis. We have a really robust commercial data set that allows us to kind of understand travel patterns and behaviors. And at a regional level, we're trying to understand how those where those special activity centers are that we don't already know about, and how those patterns may change, especially over the past few years as we are seeing fluctuations in employment patterns. So some work that's already on the website, and we're going to be metering that out over the months, just so we're not inundating you with too much documentation all at once. But really the focus of our work right now, where we're at in process, and what I'll be kind of focusing the presentation on later, is really goals and objectives. That's where we're, kind of setting that compass, for the future, but also understanding what that future may look like. A lot of uncertainty. We did some scenario planning as part of the 2045 plan. We're going to be continuing that under what we're calling drivers of change, looking at the different factors and what we need to do as it relates to transportation professionals to prepare accordingly. We're also working very closely with FDOT and Florida's Turnpike Enterprise on the updates and the preparations of their regional distribution models. Your staff, both at the counties and municipalities, are being reached out to by both of those modeling, kind of the modeling folks at the district to start working on that socioeconomic information, understanding where there is population growth intensities, where those densities are going to be out into the future. So they're working to make sure that their work matches up with your comprehensive plans. Another federal requirement as part of our long-range planning process is for an MPO to have what we call a congestion management process. Our TSMO advisory committee really oversees that effort, focusing on recurring and non-recurring and issues surrounding safety. So that work is in process, and you'll be hearing more about that at future meetings. And we also just recently kicked off some additional work relating to health, housing, and some of our environmental evaluations. There have been some recent changes in federal law, and now we're required to directly incorporate health, housing, and environmental issues into our long-range planning product. We've done so in the past, but they've provided a little more direction on how they would like that seen. So we're incorporating that into the 2050 plan. You've heard a lot about our needs assessments over the past 18 months. This was intentional. We got a lot of feedback from the 2045 plan that some of our needs assessments were moving at too fast of a pace. People didn't have time to say their, to participate actively. And that's why for the TISMO master plan and the active transportation plan, we started those needs assessments well in advance so we could come to during this MTP long range planning process and have more discussion about how we want to spend our money, how we want to invest versus understanding what we need and what we desire. So all of those needs assessments that you've heard about are going to flow into the MTP. We're going to be taking all of that into consideration, and we'll be kind of packaging that up kind of with a mode neutral approach as we move forward into the next few months. We had we had a technical workshop. So this is where we invite in all of our TAC and TISMO members for the long form of these presentations. We had a 90-minute meeting every month, every even month until our board adopts the plan. We'll be meeting virtually. We had a good presentation from FDOT and the Turnpike Enterprise on their modeling efforts to kind of kick off their work with local governments. We presented the existing conditions, some highlights from our existing conditions work. Again, that's available on the draft MT 2050 page. And then we really started the discussion of our goals and objectives, and then introduced some of those future focused thoughts, how things may change. But this is where goals and objectives fit in. No matter what, no matter how the future changes, what is that transportation system? What is the community that we desire? And I think that's where goals and objectives and scenario planning really go hand in hand. So again, as it relates to drivers of change, we kind of delved into this with our 2045 plan. If you recall many presentations, 2019, 2020, about what the future may look like. Again, it was kind of almost too soon to talk about some of those disruption dilemmas now, but we're seeing them in real time. So we're going to continue to look at that, demographic shifts, both in population, but both who we are as a community and as a diverse region, how we need to support traveler needs. Public health, as I mentioned before, a new element that we're going to be emphasizing, but specific to Central Florida, our economy, how visitation and tourism fits into that, but also our future development. We're also considering some more external, global, international factors, technology, huge question mark there, but something that we're definitely keeping an eye on, the many facets of how that may change our work and needing to make sure that our infrastructure investments are future-proofed. Climate and risk is something that we incorporated in our last plan, but we're going to be spending a lot more time as it relates to this, especially as it relates to environmental mitigation and land preservation. Cost is something we're seeing rising costs, in the near term and we have over the past few years. Is that a constant? Will things taper off? So us understanding kind of the supply and demand side of the revenue is going to be really important for us. Again, we had a long form presentation of this. I have a hyperlink on the screen. You can jump right to there if you want to hear a 20, 30-minute presentation about some of these drivers of change and at what trajectory or what velocity they're moving at. But again, where we're at in our process is really focusing on goals and objectives at this point. Again, kind of that compass, no matter what, this is what we want out of our system. And like our public participation plan, we looked at how we've done business in the past. Obviously, there are a lot of new federal and state requirements, mostly federal, new planning requirements, expectations of us. So we're making sure that we're incorporating those, emphasizing where appropriate. And we always think it's good to do that literature review. How are others in our chair doing that work? So we looked at peers, and really the reflection we had from our past goals is they were all encompassing, but a little too broad in some cases. So they weren't specific and measurable and achievable to all degrees. So we really tried to use that lens as we've been working with our technical partners to prepare the goals and objectives. In tab 9 of your agendas, you have, I believe, an earlier version of this presentation, which includes the goals and objectives. So I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, but obviously you'll have time this month and next to chew on them a little bit more. Safety is a constant goal from our last plan. I think it was called safety and security, but at the end of the day, that goal phrase did not change. The objectives as well focus on vision zero, emergency response, and the kind of holistic resilience of our system in general, but wanting to really provide a safe and secure system for everybody is the goal on the safety front. We want a reliable system for all modes, no matter how you're getting to and from, but also really emphasizing for people, but also freight and goods, that economy in motion, something that we have to keep a really important eye on. So you see some objectives there as it relates to the state of good repair, how that supports a reliable movement, reliable travel time, something that we have a federal performance measure on that our board has taken action on in the past, but also the importance of focusing on adapting technologies. Connectivity, this is similar to accessibility. Kind of those terms are going to be used hand in hand in our process, and that is the goal that we have here. It's to connect, enhance lives through improved access to opportunities, really connecting people to places as efficiently as possible. So you'll see, as it relates to public transportation, so transit connectivity, how we connect to the intermodal aspects of the different things, but also wanting to reduce our trip distance. That was our way of kind of proxy understanding, how accessible are our trips, and one way to look at that is by reducing our overall trip distances. Community is another one. This was called Health and Community in the 2045 plan, centers around the same thing, the importance of community and health to an environment to support the region. Prosperity, this was our economic and investment category of the 2045 plan. Much of the objectives are the same, with a focus on the transportation system, again, being a means to an end in serving the region's economic prosperity and the region's economy. So as we were having the discussion with partners, it was, where do these objectives fit? Some objectives are, the reliability, but reliability, supports economy, and there's an interconnected to this. So this visual that you have here on screen kind of just shows that it is interconnected. Improvements on one factor have really clear nexus to the as it relates to some of the other objectives. So, and it all kind of supports kind of a greater quality of life as a whole. So where we're at in the process, again, we've taken feedback from our technical workshop partners. We've presented this to all of our advisory committees. We actually have a follow-up survey that we're working with the advisory committees to allow them to wordsmith a little bit and kind of see where they have comfort in the objectives that we are presented today. But our intent is to provide you their feedback in a refined set of goals and objectives at your next meeting. And with that, also a set of draft indicators. So again, I mentioned we want to be measurable and focus on achievement and implementation. So in addition to the objective, there will be a corresponding indicator, a metric. How do we hold ourselves accountable to the objective that we're identifying? And then beyond that, we'll use these goals and objectives, as I mentioned before, as a compass to our needs assessment, and it will feed into our prioritization as well. The things that we say are important will be how we measure ourselves and how we select projects moving down the line. So with that, I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. I appreciate your time this morning.
Any questions, Mr. Trout? Thank you so much. Okay, next we move on to public comment. Ms. Lisa, do we have any public comment cards?
Yes, we have received one request from Ms. Joanne Canellis.
Ms. Canellis? Yep. Name and address, please. It's working.
You hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi. Joan Canales, 324 Claremont Avenue, Lake Mary, Florida, 32746. Yes, like I said before, we need this active transportation, mass transit right away too, so that I don't have to walk so much, especially on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays and stuff like that. And we need a bus down here at the Country Club Road as well, so I don't have to walk so much. And we should have this bus stop over at the by the park, right next to this duplex I'm living at. Okay, it's over there. I forgot the name of the street, but Country Club, and this one where the park is in a corner. And we'd like to have the bus back on the Oviedo Boulevard by the swimming area, because I swim there too. And we need the bus over there at the, by the Lake Mary Prep School too, please. And we need to have the bus stop over by the, the walkways, the like underpass ways, road underpass at Alamo Springs by Douglas Avenue too, please. We got it there now. It's there that wasn't there before the pandemic. Now this time, okay, you need the bus there so I don't have to walk so much way down here. And stuff like that, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Next, we have board member comments. Any board members wishing to speak? I had two items. One, when we talk about our safety moment and such, and I think I've asked this before, and not sure how we're able to extract the information, but trying to determine how many of those are involved are visitors versus the folks that live here. Kind of curious as that percentage, if we're able to get that information from the different crashes and things like that. I think that would be good information for us to know. Secondly, today, there's a team that's doing a demo at the our transportation department on Simpson Road. It's for a school bus radar system. I'm going to try to attend today. Sounds very interesting. And so they can detect if anything's under the bus or if someone's left on the bus. So it's a company that's come up with this radar system. So we'll see how that goes. But another component of safety that we sometimes talk about. The last item, we're talking so much about safety and just thinking of how do we do better education. One, I go back to when we all took our driver's test, and the different questions on it. And I know that's an actual established cabinet, someone that's over what we call the DMV for the Class C knowledge exam. I don't know if it's possible to get a copy of that test so we can look at those questions again and maybe actually have some input to some other safety questions. And then a real crazy idea of doing, when you do your license renewal, of having a 20-25 question, just safety refresher that you can't fail. You pick the wrong answer, it just says, go to the next answer, so you get the right answer again. So again, it's just a refresher because, we took that how many years ago? And it may be a way of just bringing some of those items to the forefront. I don't know what it would take to make that happen, but I think it's worth having that discussion. Any other comments? Commissioner Wilson.
Just sort of thinking about the first thing you said about getting that information regarding visitors versus residents. I'm wondering if there's any reporting that we would be able to ask car rental agencies for, because they would have accident reports on their own vehicles in those and just still doesn't give you a full picture,
right?
But at the very least, it's another metric that we may be able to access without as much intervention on the driver basis. So
since they're private owned, I'm not sure if they would, because they would have to volunteer that information, but because when you have a report's public. Alex.
I can tell you from preliminary analysis, we are the crashes are occurring mostly by residents. When we say visitor, there's some variation in that. We have people from Lake County, Sumter County coming into Orange, for kind of, commute purposes. But we'll come back at your next meeting. Yeah, we'll come back next meeting, kind of looking at that distribution. The crash report does have, an address origin of both, of all parties involved. So we'll see how we can report that back and kind of give context to not just where the issues are occurring, but who may need some additional education and training.
And if we could find out about that crazy idea I had to see if there's any appetite, I guess that would be a statewide type thing. But I think it's one way of trying to get that information out there in a little piece. Anything else? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.
So, I would think And this was something actually I thought I'd have when I looked on it. And I said, I was in that industry. My business. That condition, education. Like, hey, right, right, legal.